1950s Science Fiction Podcast, Season 3, Episode 3, Radio Drama Review, 2000 Plus, and Escape. Episodes The Flying Saucer, North of Polaris. Hello and welcome back to the 1950s Science Fiction Podcast. I'm back after a long break while I worked on a different project. I was busy recording a segment for the Star Pog Log podcast, which is forthcoming on a future show. That spot will make my fourth appearance on their podcast. I've also been busy with both work and my personal life. Today, I will review 2 episodes from different radio series. The first review is 2000 Plus and their story, The Flying Saucers. The second review, North of Polaris, from the series Escape. Flying Saucers from 2000 Plus. The science fiction radio drama 2000 Plus ran on the Mutual Broadcasting Network from March 15, 1950 to January 2, 1952. The series' running time was 30-minute episodes each and was produced as an anthology. Each story was an original script instead of a story taken from a published magazine. 2000 Plus is considered the first adult science fiction radio drama. It debuted 1 month before Dimension X. The episode was broadcasted on August 28, 1950 by Mutual Broadcasting. It starred actor Ralph Bell as a scientist who wanted to know why UFOs sightings were kept happening near the military base where he worked. He sends a message to Washington stressing the importance of security at the site due to the nature of the rocket testing conducted there. When a flying saucer is detected just before a test, he orders it shot down. A craft of some kind crashes in the nearby desert, and a local rancher finds the wreckage. Sounds like Roswell. Dr. Horton, Ralph Bell, goes to the crash site to investigate further, but when he does, things start getting weird. He thinks the alien craft is abandoned, but finds an occupant at the controls. I don't want to tell you the rest of the story, but I want you to read it. I don't want to tell you the rest of the story, but I want you to listen to it for yourself. Hey, no plot spoilers. The Flying Saucers is an excellent episode and an excellent sci-fi radio drama of the period. The show used some excellent sound effects for a radar tracking scene during the missile launch. The lead actor, Ralph Bell, has a distinctive voice, and I remember him from the CBS Radio Mystery Theater program during the 70s. Overall, it's a great story and worth listening to. If you're serious about old-time radio sci-fi stories, this episode is a must-listen. You can find this episode of 2000 Plus at archive.org. Just look for the ORT section, Old Time Radio section, on the site. Also available at the episode is also available at relicradio.com in the science fiction section of that website. For this podcast, I have included the intro for this episode on the podcast track, and I'll have it up next. I will also have the completed show linked on my Vocal Media page. Just go to vocalmedia.com and type in my name in the search bar and type in the podcast name, and you should be able to find it.
I was alone in a room 100,000 miles from Earth. My body lay dead before me, and yet I spoke and felt and lived. Behind me lay a tortured world. Before me, the moon and destiny. Again, I felt a surge of power, and had I been able to, I would have smiled. My mission was accomplished. No one knew, no one understood. If they had, they would not believe. This was a project 3,000 years old, yet no one had guessed. No one.
Listen now to 2000 Plus. Adventures into the world of tomorrow. Science fiction stories from the years beyond 2000 AD. Today, a story entitled The Flying Saucers. It is the year 2000 plus 12. A blazing New Mexico sun shines down upon a great military installation, upon a vast, noisy field, and upon a silvery shape which seems to strain forward, ready to leap up into space. In an executive office, a man sits in his chair, his eyes on the great rocket. Behind him, a girl waits for him to speak.
Escape, north of Polaris. The second story is from Escape, episode number 183, North of Polaris, broadcasted on May 17, 1953. Escape was an action-adventure series that aired on CBS from July the 7th, 1947 to September 25th, 1954. This audio drama was a leading anthology for adventure radio dramas of the period. The show was noted for its opening narration mixed with the classic music score, The Night on Bald Mountain, by Petrovich Moskowsky. Pardon me, I can't pronounce the last name. He was a Russian composer. While the opening narration was read by American actor James Conrad, best known for his role as Frank Gannon in the TV crime drama Cannon, broadcast in the 70s on CBS. Conrad is also the lead actor in this episode for Escape. During the 50s, the actor worked extensively in radio dramas. He was the first to play Marshall Dillon in the radio version of Gunsmoke. Conrad got his start in radio drama when he was just 22 years old, working for a radio station in Los Angeles during the 40s. At KMPC, he produced and starred in the horror fiction anthology series Hermit's Cave. In this story, a group of astronauts lands on an alien planet for the first time. Once they disembark from their spaceship, they encounter a barren and hostile world. While surveying the planet, the astronauts encounter giant rats but manage to avoid getting hurt. As they continue about the planet, the lead astronaut notices the signs of a civilization that once flourished in the alien world. Even more astonishing are a handful of aliens that resemble humans and speak English. The aliens explain how they survived the atomic war that devastated the planet and left giant mutant rats as one of their effects. One of the aliens asks where they had come from, and a very surprising explanation is given. My thoughts. This episode of Escape was an excellent story, full of mystery and suspense. The series used talented writers to create an engaging story. Since the show was low budget, the producers faced limitations on music and sound effects for the series. A common theme that ran in science fiction stories at the time was the post-atomic war destruction of the population. In the show, we see how astronauts discover a world that nearly destroyed itself by atomic warfare, a plot device discussed during a previous podcast, Rocket Ship XM. It seems like this was a good plot for sci-fi at the time due to the Cold War and continuing A-bomb test on the public mind. I do recommend listening to the story. I have included the first 2 minutes of the show in the podcast, and I will have the link to the entire show on my Focal Media page. You can find this episode of Escape at relicradio.com or at the Internet Archive.
Tired of the everyday grind? Ever dream of a life of romantic adventure? Want to get away from it all? We offer you Escape.
Escape, designed to free you from the four walls of today for a half hour of high adventure.
You are on a planet of desolation and utter ruin, awaiting the return of your comrades to carry you to safety, while the remains of life about you, crawling and evil, are slowly hemming you in and ruthlessly tracking you down to your death.
Listen now as Escape brings you Charles Smith's unusual story, North of Polaris.
Testing. 1, 2, 3, 4. Do you read me, Joe?
Loud and clear, R5S5. All ready, sir.
How is he?
Well,
How do you feel, Mac? Scared, sir. Now take your time out there. Be very sure.
quiet.
Can you see him?
Not yet, sir. Yes, sir, there he is.
Mac, what's it like out there?
Nothing much to see.
You feel heavier or lighter than usual? Can you move about easily?
Just like at home.
What about atmosphere?
I'm turning off my oxygen unit and opening the intake valve.
Careful. Not too fast now.
I've cut my supply completely, sir.
Rescue party standing by, sir.
Well, that is all for now. I hope you've enjoyed my podcast and that you will continue to listen. This past year has seen growth in listenership for this podcast, according to Spotify Wrap. I do want to thank all those who have listened and subscribed to my show. Please feel free to send me feedback at any time on social media, by email, or via comments. I am most active on Twitter at EdwardGerman3 and on Instagram at Shutterbug1681. I also promote my podcast on my local media page as well. You will find the link in the podcast webpage on any of the platforms.